Welcome to another episode of an intimate conversation with women of color. I am your host, Deneen L. Garrett, and today's guest is Dr. Christen Behzadi. Dr. B is a board certified anesthesiologist with 7 years of experience practicing at a private hospital in the Texas Medical Center in Houston. She is the founder of International Intercultural, a cultural consulting company, or the IIC firm. So you'll hear me refer to IIC. It's focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion learning programs. Dr. B, tell us more about you.
Thank you so much, Deneen. Thank you for that introduction, and thank you for having me here today. So, yes, I own a cultural consulting company, IIC firm. We focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion learning programs. Specifically, we train around allyship and advocacy as an equity practice. We take allyship and we put standards and framework around it, and we take it from something that is a list of good things to do to a practice that all of us can really engage in wherever we are to advance equity. So yes, my background actually is as a board certified anesthesiologist. I did not imagine to get into this work, but like many things, it found me along the way. So the way that I got involved in equity work is that I was racially discriminated against in my third year of medical school. I had a patient tell me that they did not want to be seen by a Black doctor, and they asked me to leave the patient room. It was shocking for me. I mean, I couldn't believe it. We're on Zoom right now, but the viewers and listeners cannot see all my degrees here behind my wall. But I was thinking to myself, oh my gosh, I just left the honors college at the University of Michigan. I did like so well on my MCAT. I did really well on my standardized tests. And I have every right to be here as much as anybody else. Like, I couldn't understand why somebody would say that to me. But in that moment, being so stunned, I realized, you know what, Christen, some of the things that your parents were telling you about being Black in this world, that was not just, I would tell them that was your generation. That's
Yeah.
because you grew up in the 50s in Oklahoma in these small towns. It was just very bad. I was like, my friends aren't like that. We don't deal with that. It was that moment when I realized my parents were trying to help me understand some things, and I could not ace my way out of some things. Like, there were things that I was going to have to face no matter how hard I worked. And so I looked over at my supervising physician in that moment, and he looked like a deer in headlights, did not know what to do, did not know what to say. And he just leaned over and asked me, Christen, can you go see another patient in the clinic? So I left the patient room sobbing. I mean, I was so devastated that somebody said something like that to me, and that I was asked to leave the patient room rather than addressing it. And when I was standing in the hall, a classmate of mine saw me and he asked me what happened. I told him, and he went back to the patient room, knocked on the door, got the attending physician out and said, we should not be doing this, that our school should not be accommodating these kind of patient requests, and that we should never make the only Black student in a class of 200 medical students feel like they are not welcome here, or that they can't see all the patients in our clinic. So I know you've heard this story before. I told this story when I came to AT&T and did this training. But that moment was really shocking for me because this person was different from me racially, culturally, ethnically, religiously, politically. I mean, the things where we identify ourselves, we were very different in that way. They did not do this because we had the same political beliefs or because we came from the same racial ethnic background. They did this because they had their own commitment to equity. And when something inequitable happened, they had the skills to be able to go into action and to actually do something for equity. And so that is how I got involved in this work. I ended up writing an intercultural book. I got very busy doing this work for
Yeah.
free. I wasn't charging. I mean, I was still practicing medicine and I was working with my readers after publishing this book. But after about 6 years, I was really busy and I realized there is a market for this. Like there is a need for this level of understanding. So I developed a business model for corporations and corporate organizations. First client that ever hired me was Toyota. It was a very small contract, but it was like this idea that they liked my ideas. That's what I liked about that. And that's how I got started. And so here we are today, 3, 4 years on. So that's the evolution of IIC firm.
That's awesome. And I thank you for sharing that. And so, yeah, you mentioned our connection. And so our connection actually extended beyond that, beyond the workplace, because once we, realized that we are both from Detroit, you from
Yes.
Metro Detroit, that
Yes.
was still our connection there, right? And we wanted to make sure that we, supported one another in our endeavors and what it is that we're doing. So going back to the story that you shared, you at that moment, that person let you know you were Black,
Yes.
right? And so
Absolutely.
you were able to move through life not having to be Black, and deal, and what comes with being Black until that day. And what that says is, and what you felt and what that showed you is it doesn't matter. Because as you pointed out, you have the degrees behind you. So I'm looking at the degrees, and those who are watching on YouTube, you can see the degrees, and those who are listening on your podcast, she has the degrees, and she mentioned University of Michigan. So for those that know, right? So she had all the accolades, she had the intelligence, she had everything, but this one person tried to reduce her, right, to less than, made her question herself. And from that, that's what IIC, was born, right? So they didn't know, there's a thing where, what is it? They thought we were weeds, but we're not,
Yes.
Uh,
Yes.
and so you showed that. And it's like, okay, well, I'm going to take that pain. I'm going to take what you tried to, again, crumble me with, and grow this thing. And so we're better for that.
We are. And the thing is that, when I was at Michigan, I was very well aware that I'm Black. And being in an environment like Michigan at that time, when I was there, I made the front page news internationally. Someone from the Associated Press snapped a picture of me when I was at Michigan because at that time, in 2001 to 2005, when I was there, the Michigan was fighting for their affirmative action policies.
Mm.
So that case was in the Supreme Court when I was on campus. And so there was a lot of activity around that. And I remember being at a Black student rally where we were really giving our support to Michigan for really fighting for this. And it was never a problem there. You
Mm.
know what I mean? Michigan was one of those places where like it was not a problem to be Black. And now in retrospect, I feel like a lot of that has to do with Detroit and the Black influence in Detroit, because I've been to other really great institutions that are in cities that don't have that kind of influence. And I think that it really means something. When that patient said that to me, it was this idea that it doesn't matter how much you do, it doesn't matter how good you are, that just the essence of you being Black is, it's not acceptable and it's not okay. And that was really hard for me
Yeah.
because a lot of us, when we're the only Black person in an environment, there's so many times I was the only Black student in this class or whatever, we're trying so hard to just fit in. We're trying so hard to just, blend in with everyone and just go with the flow. But yeah, that moment was a reckoning. I was like, you know what? No more. I cannot fit myself into being someone that I'm not. And that's it. Like, I've got to figure this out.
Yeah, no. And like I said, thank you so much, right? Because it's heavy work. I'm exhausted just looking at social media and seeing the things that are happening. So I know that the people who are actually in it, right, doing the work are totally exhausted, and definitely need to take some time for themselves, because it's overwhelming, right? It's overwhelming just to be yourself, and for lots of people to have a problem with it, lots of people who are wanting to silence us, right? And
Oh,
so
yeah.
that's even, that's what intimate conversation is about. We're amplifying and elevating the voices of women of color, right? And so that's what this platform is about, right? It is important for us to have a platform to use our voices. And so that's what we're here doing together. So again, I
We need to
appreciate
do
you.
that because we silence we silence ourselves too,
Yeah.
because like I said, being the only Black student in a class of 200 people, it's not like I'm there trying to talk about my unique needs or the things that are important to me. I'm there trying to fit in. This is what I was doing when I was 21, 22 years old. I was trying to just not making a big deal that I was Black, to just perform and ace my tests and really prove my place there. And now, like who I am today, I'm like, absolutely not. I'd be there like making noise and being like, you need to deal with it.
Yeah.
You got to deal with it, because a lot of us are done silencing ourselves. And sometimes when we stop silencing ourselves, like you said, some people come out around to remind us, hey, you're not supposed to be speaking up. You're not
Mm-hmm.
supposed to be saying anything. And this reminds me of a call I just got from a client. Oh my goodness. With a vice president of diversity at a hospital system. The organization set all of these goals around recruitment and retention for residents, because they don't want it to be like it was when I was at, this isn't the school that I went to, but they don't
Yeah.
want it to be that environment where there's only one, Black person, there's only a handful of women in this class. They set their goals, and I got a call because the program directors of these residency programs were getting very upset, saying that this person is intimidating people and being aggressive. And the institution was just up in arms. They're like, we don't know what to do. And I'm like, you know what? When we empower Black people, because the vice president of diversity, equity, inclusion at this hospital was Black. When you start empowering Black people, we're not in that place that people are used to us being, where we're just
Right.
zipping it and we're just standing in line and doing what we're told. A lot of people start having a problem with that.
Yes.
And so the silencing, I just love that you brought that up, because it's like we are not silencing ourselves anymore. And
No.
people need to deal with what we are saying, because we are going to push for equity. We're not just going to stay in our place anymore.
Absolutely. And we're going to speak up and ask for what it is that we want. Right.
Yeah.
And not even just what we want, but what we should have.
Yeah.
I just recently, a few months ago, I was like, should I bring this thing up? Should I even talk about it? And I'm like, absolutely. I
Mm-hmm.
absolutely should. I
Bring it
absolutely
up.
should pursue this and bring this up and call it out and say, hey, this is not right. Like, this is not enough, right?
Not enough. We
Yeah,
have
this is not
me,
enough.
right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you've already, given us some background on how IIC was, what prompted you to launch it.
Right.
But tell us a little bit more about, I don't think you shared the story because I know the story, but did you tell us who the person who was your ally at the time, who they are today?
Yes. So the end of that story is that after this happened, after this person really, spoke up and said something and sparked conversations that needed to be had at our university, we ended up getting very close. We ended up dating. We got married. We have 2 children. We live here in Houston, Texas. So I tell people, listen, I married my first ally advocate, and that's probably very extreme. You're probably not going to marry, but you really do bond at a very deep level. It is deeper than the level of what makes us different. And that is how we become bonded in allyship, which is the name of our training. It's
Yeah.
this connection that we get beyond the things that make us different. It is our commitment to each other, to our shared humanity, to equity. That is the level that we bond. And from that place, it's okay that we're different and people can be themselves.
Yeah, and you know what? And that's beautiful, right? When you actually just pause and listen to what you're saying, and how that relationship grows, and how and are you still practicing different religions?
Yes. So in our house, we do everything, everything. So I come from a very typical Southern Baptist
Black Baptist,
background.
right?
Yes. Sitting in church all day. I was in vacation Bible school every single summer in Muskogee, Oklahoma, growing up. I mean, there's just no way to undo that kind of upbringing. But for us, it's easy. Like for us, it's not a problem. We celebrate Islamic holidays, we celebrate Christian holidays, we celebrate everything in our home. And our hope and wish for our children is for them to be good people, and for them to do what is good for them, to choose something that resonates with them and that is right with them. It never has been an issue for us in our family. Somebody with the values that he has, that speaks up when he needs to speak up. If that's what Islam produced, then I am a fan of Islam. That's
Yeah.
where I'm at.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I love it. I mean, your family is like a case study, if you will, or demonstration, right? That this is what bonded allyship looks like. So
Yep.
again, we talked about how it came about. You just shared a little bit more of the relationship, and you are doing a lot, right? You're doing a lot just with the business, with the allyship. How else are you using your voice specifically for Black women?
I think that that's a really important thing. So you've been through our training, and in our training, we don't specifically talk about any particular intersection of identity, because to us, it's almost not as important in the conversation as people positioning themselves correctly to do equity work. My mission, what I am doing behind the scenes, what is so important to me is Black women and Black men and Black people in the workplace that have been silenced, that have not been able to use our voices, that are put into positions where we are like the only and we're tokenized. What I want to do every time that I come into an organization is I want to show people, especially leaders, how we should be positioning ourselves, so that when communities speak up, that we understand that it's our time to sit down and to listen. I want Black women that I don't even know to be impacted by leaders that know their place. And I say that with as much love as I can, but it's time for everyone else to start learning their place in the equity conversation, not just us learning to silence ourselves and stay in line and shut up and, kiss the ring and, kiss the feet, whatever we have to do. That's not what I want. And so, yeah, that's really my life work. It's very personal work for me. It's not how I live my life. It's very influenced by how I do the work that I do in equity. And so it's all very connected and very personal to me.
Yeah. And so, of course, you're coming across because, in a lot of what we're talking about right now, we can kind of just stay around that as we're talking about being silenced, right? And so let's even just kind of focus on Black women in healthcare, in medicine.
Yeah.
Even though, again, it takes a lot to get to that point of residency, if you will, right? Lots. So we all can agree that it takes a lot to get there, and you don't just, trip into it.
Yes.
It takes a lot of work, it takes a lot of effort, it takes a lot of, grit and grind and whatnot. But again, as Black women, we may find ourselves, we're in a position, and now, we, because others are silencing us and trying to silence us and trying to put us in a box and all of those things, we don't recognize our power, the power of our voices and
Yes.
whatnot. So what three things would you tell that woman? What three things would you tell that Black woman who may have lost, her voice, lost her power?
Right. So the first thing is that, so power is a huge topic.
Mm,
And it's something that I talk to leadership quite a bit about, but it's something that I also talk to communities about. We need to stop giving up our power to people that we do not have to. A lot of
mm,
the things that are happening to us, we are like consenting to, whether we are thinking about that or not. We do not have to stay silent. We do not have to devalue ourselves. And we do not have to stay quiet about our needs in the workplace or in other situations just because it's going to make other people uncomfortable. And so, what I would say in terms of empowering yourself is to be very careful and intentional and just conscious about what you're consenting to and what you're not consenting to. Like, they need our cooperation in order to perpetuate these systems of inequity. And so we have to quit cooperating. That's number one. Say what we need, ask for what we need, and understand that a lot of power, like they don't really inherently have any power over us. They have decision-making authority, because authority and power are two separate things. And so okay, this is like probably getting too controversial, but I don't care. I'm fine. A lot of organizations, the strategy is to give themselves authority over things that are important to us in our lives. And when they, for example, like our health insurance, okay, that's like one thing. So for me, when I went out on my own and when I knew I was going to start an equity company, the first thing that I did was that I got my health insurance like away from my employer, and we did it on our own ourselves. And the reason is because we don't want people to have authority over things where we're going to compromise decisions that are not good for us if they're being like controlled by someone else. So be careful about how much authority you're giving others about things that are important to you. Health insurance was important to me, but it's like, that's just an example of like what is really important to you. Like that is a personal decision that you make on your own about what is important to you, and make sure that you maintain authority over that yourself. Like some of these things are not as scary as we think to take them on our own. And so I would just say that, like, be very careful about what we are consenting to. Do not consent to your own degradation or devaluing of yourself. Keep authority over things that are important to you, and don't be afraid to go out on your own. There is always going to be more jobs. Okay. So if you have to go back, like you can go back and get another job. Like that system is not going to go anywhere.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I do want to shift, right? And so I asked about dreams deferred, right? And it's a book, and I don't ask about the book, but my sister did write a book. My late sister did write a book, Dreams Deferred. So it's just something that I've included in the conversations to get women to think about, are there any dreams that they've ever deferred? And recently someone talked about, a dream lifestyle. So as opposed to a dream job or, a dream situation, an actual dream lifestyle. So I'm like, oh, okay. So, what comes to mind for you when I say dreams deferred as well as a dream lifestyle?
Right. So dreams deferred. I'm probably on the opposite end of the spectrum in general, in that I run after things. Like I probably do too much and run too fast. I mean, my whole life is about like, at this point, like slow down, take a rest, slow down. You don't need to do so much. You don't need to commit to so much. You don't need to go so fast. So I'm one of the kind of people that it's like, I get an idea. I'm like, I want to write a book. And I was a resident at the time. And as a resident, we worked 80 hours a week. They had to cap our hours at 80. They couldn't make us work any more than that. But we were working 80 hours a week. And my free time, when I was home, I would stay up late. I did my research and I wrote a 400-page book. This was my intercultural book that I published before I started IIC Firm. I go after what I want. But what I've noticed at this point in my life is that the things that get deferred sometimes are the things for myself. So it's easy for me to do things that are of service to other people. And it's harder for me to slow down and do things for myself. And so I have deferred a lot of, just very like kind of personal things that I want to work on or do for myself that have nothing to do with benefiting other people. They're just, for me. So those are my dreams deferred. And I have made a really committed effort in 2022 to not do that, and to start giving myself some of that energy and not deferring my own personal dreams that, won't necessarily just benefit the next person.
Yeah, absolutely. A lot of us, we same thing, right? Same, we're all in the same boat. We can easily and quickly do something for other people, but when it comes to ourselves, there's a lot of thought, we forget about it. It's such a huge right now movement on self-care, right? Like I have a treadmill in my front room, and the other day I pulled it down and I said, well, that's progress. I haven't gotten on it. Yes. But to pull it down, that's progress, right?
100%. 100%. Absolutely. I started walking and I was just like, oh my gosh, I used to like be an athlete and like do all these crazy workouts. And I'm like, this is horrible. But I mean, you have to start somewhere. That is progress.
Absolutely. It is. And so I'm, pat myself on the back. And today is like, I think today is, so in our Facebook group is Workout Wednesday. And so again, that was my contribution. Well, I've at least pulled it down, and being real, right?
Yep.
Because, don't want to put it, oh yeah, I was out and I did 30 minutes an hour, etc. No, I didn't. So, being real to say it is, it's a step in the right direction, and so everybody goes at their own pace.
That's like the honesty, and I love that because in this day of social media, it's just become so much more challenging. People just show their highlights. People
Yeah,
show, you know what I mean? They're
right.
not showing like the stuff that doesn't look good. You know what? That's all I could do today. That's it. I could put my workout clothes on, but I couldn't actually go do anything.
Right.
Nobody's showing that. So I love that. I love that push for authenticity.
Yeah. And so with the dream lifestyle. So,
Mhm.
like I said, I saw that and it resonated with me. Somebody asked, I think yesterday or the other day, like, what's your one word for the year? And I'm like, live a dream lifestyle. So that's my focus for 2022, live a dream lifestyle. And the way that I kind of like backed into that being my word is I thought about what is it, how do I want 2022 to look? What do I want to have accomplished in 2022? What are the things that I want to do in 2022? And so that was perfect. Live
Yes,
that dream lifestyle. Like all the things that I want for myself, make it happen. So
absolutely. And defining that for yourself because it's something that, everybody's dream lifestyle
yeah,
looks different. And I think that sometimes we're all like kind of chasing this sort of American dream. Um, but when we ask ourselves, like, what's important to us? What does that mean? What does that look like? We can start crafting, our own dream lifestyle. And I honestly, I feel at this point like I do live my dream lifestyle
that's
every
awesome.
single day because I really like thought about it, but I thought about it in my 20s. That was actually like that moment, like what happened to
Mhm.
me in the third year of medical school, it made me start questioning everything in my life. I mean, there were so many things at that point that I was like, you know what? My life is bigger than this and I'm going to do
Yeah.
more, and I'm going to figure out, I don't know exactly what that is, but I'm just going to do something and I'm going to figure out how this looks in my life.
Yeah, that's awesome. So, January is National Mentoring Month. And
Right.
are there any mentors that like resonate with you or even being a mentor, like even through allyship or in the medical profession? What stands out?
Yes, absolutely. So, in terms of mentorship, I would say, myself, like many Black women, I was going through my schooling and my training without mentors. I was not picked up and, kind of shown the way. I was very lucky that my dad is a doctor. And so he was able to help me understand things that they're not going to just kind of come out and tell you, in a school or training environment. So I would say that if I had a mentor, it would be my dad,
Yeah.
as the person that was like kind of helping me on this path. But um, I, I read a lot of books. I mean, I have like books and books and books and books and books. So I really like Oprah Winfrey. I know some people don't like her, but I really I like her. I like her ideas. I feel like she's very into the idea of connecting, engaging across the things that make us different, which is something that's very important to me. And I like her ideas around that and her content around that. And so she's a very important person. And then
Yeah.
I read a lot of books from authors from the turn of the century, like Neville Goddard and Florence Scovel Shinn. These are more philosophical writers, but I really like their work. And even though they're not living, it's almost like a mentor to me
Yeah.
because their work has influenced so much of my life that I really enjoy it.
Yeah, and you know what? And I'm glad that you mentioned like Oprah, a person who, we all have access to her virtually, right? We're able to look into her world and hear her thoughts and whatnot, social media, et cetera. And then also the books, right? Because mentors don't necessarily have to be anyone that you even have a formal relationship or any relationship with, right? It's
Right.
people that you glean something from, like you said, that you're inspired by, that you're impacted by. So for, our audience, keep that in mind. Anyone who is living a life that you aspire to is a form of mentor to you, right? And so just keep that in mind. That is a form of mentorship. So before we wrap, Dr. B, what would you like to leave the audience with?
I would just wrap with like one more thought about mentorship also, is that sometimes we feel like mentors might have to be someone further along than us, or like they're going to lay out a path for us. But especially in DEI, I have several friends that I have known for years that have gotten into DEI, and we meet once a month and talk, and all of us are sitting there having this very authentic conversation. Like, what are you doing about this? Or what are you doing about that? Or how are you, figuring this out or that out? And even though we're all kind of in a similar place, there's so much mentorship there that we give to each other based on our individual strengths, and helping each other, fill in our knowledge gaps. And so I would definitely say to not just look for someone who's necessarily like older and wiser and further along. Like sometimes we can really mentor and help each other and build community. And so I guess I would just leave by saying thank you for having me here. And it's really been an honor and a pleasure to speak with you and to spend some time with your audience here. We have to remember that it is okay for us to speak up. It is okay for us to state our needs. And allyship is a really important topic, and it's an important path in terms of equity work. We do not look at it as some title or some cursory, kind of shallow list of 3 things to do. There is no list of 3 things to do. It's a set of skills and behaviors that we learn so that we can take action without causing harm. We can build community, and we can show up and support each other. Thank you so much, Deneen. It has really been a pleasure speaking with you and also working with you in a professional and now a personal capacity.
Yeah, no, I greatly appreciate you and your time, and of course your voice, and then definitely the work that you're doing, bonded in allyship. Dr. Christen Behzadi, thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your day.
So welcome. Thank you.